This is Evolution Martial Arts. I'm Joel Ledlow, and as always, I'm joined by Ian.
Hey
Did I
everyone.
just blow that up?
No, it's fine. It was actually good. It was like, oh,
My
that's different.
ongoing, my ongoing. Hi everybody. We're going to talk about something interesting. I was talking to one of the other guys who's an instructor underneath me, and he was saying, "Hey, you want to hear about stories with Jerry Petit?" And I said, "Yeah, we can talk about that as a thing." And then we were kind of rambling through our own conversation, and one of the things that really came up was that Jerry Petit and Dan Inosanto and all the other first generation guys, they're just people. And one of the things that we forget is they got to make a living and they've got to go out and do their thing, and they they need to they need to work a bit more. And to get students, they need students. I run a martial arts school, and it's one of the things I'm doing right now. I'm looking to open up a new location, and I'm got all this stuff right in my face every day. And I'll let you know more about that later. uh, but each of those individuals, those first generation students who train with Bruce Lee, and especially Bruce Lee died, they're trying to go, hey, he just did movies and there's a little bit of a riding high and they're trying to take it. But I think Ian had pointed on this one just before we hopped on here: consumer driven Jeet Kune Do. And it's the idea that the students are going to dictate the Jeet Kune Do, because it doesn't really matter how good you are. It doesn't really matter how much you got from Bruce Lee or this or that. Ultimately, you got to put food on the table. You got to pay the rent. You got to put, clothes on your back, all those things, those necessities. And a lot of these guys were juggling, trying to run teaching a program over here, but maybe they're having a job over there, or they were teaching at a school. And you know what? Like, you can teach in a lot of different ways, but there's two really big factors. Number one, someone's got to come in the door. So you got to get somebody in the door, and that's going to be a limiting factor on what you can share, because if I live in a certain area, I can only teach the people who are in that area, which then goes into the second part of they are limited as to what they can grasp. And I'd even say a third thing of they are going to be limited or influenced by what they want to grasp. And here's why I say that. Is I think Jerry said to me, people come in and I teach what they want to learn. Somebody comes in, they want to focus on kicking. They want to focus on trapping. They want to focus on punching. They want to focus on being fast. They want to focus on whatever it is. That's what you're going to teach, because they're a consumer and they're buying. I have a very broad skill set of things that I can teach and share with the public, but you have to get people to actually buy it. And I may be really passionate about item number two, but it's items 1, 7, and 8 that make me all the money. And so you're going to go towards those items, whatever that is. And I think with that mindset, and if you're a martial arts instructor and you have your own school, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you have your own business, if you're an entrepreneur and you sell a product or you sell a service, you understand that. Your consumer driven markets. Jeet Kune Do is the same thing. Now, you do want to work on quality and all that stuff, but if you want to show everybody all the cool stuff and everybody just shows up and I just want to learn a front snap kick. Shit, okay, we're doing front snap kicks. What is JKD? Well, it's a front snap kick because that's what everybody's going to come and pay me $100 for.
Right.
And it's kind of, Ian. Ian does a whole lot of stuff with his music production, but do you find that, hey, maybe this one thing over here gives you a lot more money, of your total revenue than something else? Or maybe it's something that's like, hey, I can do this, but it's not really what I thought I was going to be making money doing. Do you have that, Ian?
Yeah,
Does
it's
anybody else have that? Put it in the comments.
something interesting that is kind of a parallel between anybody that runs a business is what you want to do versus what your consumers want.
Yeah.
So something that I do a lot on my own channel is I actually ask people as like pretty often because I'm always wondering like where is this going? And Corey sometimes calls it trend forecasting, of what's
Hmm.
going on with the music world, what's what plugins or what programs are people using or whatever. And I'm like, yo, what do you guys want to see? What are you guys looking for? What should my next pack be? Because I make sounds and sell those, so I'm constantly looking for an aspect of feedback that gives me some sort of insight about how to drive my channel to where to go next. But in saying that, it's an interesting relationship about martial arts and stuff because even for me, like when I decided to become an instructor under you, I had this idea of, wanting to give the best and the most that I could to whoever the next generation was. And I've had to kind of come to terms, and maybe this is even something that has to do with ego about like most people aren't going to be ready for that,
Yeah.
but they can get something. And as you told me, I think somebody told you, whenever you teach to the middle. And so you establish something that creates a relationship behind what do you have to offer versus what are your consumers' needs, and how do you find something in between that is going to be both fulfilling, beneficial, and support your establishment to continue teaching or to continue doing whatever business you run.
Yeah, I think also it might goes in with a music parallel as well. When you're teaching because you're a martial artist, right? You're going to learn all the fundamentals and then you're going to go express yourself. Part of that is, everybody goes, "Well, Jeet Kune Do died with Bruce Lee." Okay, yeah, true in a fashion,
Yeah.
or Jerry Poteet, like Jerry Poteet's Jeet Kune Do died with him. My particular Jeet Kune Do will die with me. But I also say Jeet Kune Do is a training, like program. Things come through there. There are certain drills that you can do, and there's certain things that you're trying to cultivate. But I can teach, and I've taught a lot of people. But if you take 10 people and you teach them 5 days a week for 2 hours a day, and you take them through all the same lessons, there's still going to be 10 individuals. And individual one is going to is showcase one thing because of that's what their physical capability is, or that's just what they're into.
Right.
And same thing for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And there'll be crossovers, but they're not going to be cookie cutter. And I think when you take that consumer driven idea and then you have the individuality of the artist, you start coming up with a whole bunch of diversity in there. Yes, you can go to a karate school and say, well, look, they all do the same thing. And that's true, but I think only to a certain level. After a certain level, you start to see all the belts, all the individuals expressing themselves differently. And it's come in there. I think it's more about scalability in that case. That you're going to see the parallels in the beginner people because that's who you have the most of. There's going to be more beginners than there are intermediate. There's going to be more intermediate than there are advanced. There's going to be more advanced than there are instructors, just the way it is.
Right.
Um, I mean, my school and every martial arts school I know about is exactly the same way because it just is.
I mean,
Take a sport; it's the same way for sports too.
yeah, I mean, well, the interesting thing is like if you summarize, or to summarize this rather, if you ask 10 students, all beginner, what karate means to them, they're all going to have a different
Hmm.
answer. Then
Absolutely.
you ask them again when they're intermediate, and they might have a completely different, you know, explanation about what it is. And same thing as you gain skill. And then people that look
Be,
back on it like 10, 15 years later when they're not doing it
hmm.
anymore, like you can't not have individuality in it. I'm not saying that you're,
And I
yeah.
I think that really hits on a great point. And one of the things that I have to be faced with quite often as a martial arts and a business owner and an instructor is so you have there's the viewpoint and the consumer want as a beginner. Then there's the consumer want as an intermediate student. What do you want to get out of the program? What are you getting out of the program? What are you looking for? What do you as a consumer want from that martial art? Same thing when you get in advanced, same thing when you get in instructor level. And I think we don't always see that. A lot of times we talk about the philosophies of being on that top level, but it goes down. And I mean, I find it all the time with keyboard warriors. And I think well, there's a that's a level below. There's beginner, and then there's like I haven't begun yet. And maybe
Right.
that's even something else of like I'm a fan. Like you could be a fan of Jeet Kune Do, you could be a fan of basketball, you could be a fan of anything else without actually being a participant in it, right?
Oh man, dude,
So
talk about sports. Everyone is a freaking expert.
yeah, it's the armchair keyboard, whatever you want to call it. Wow, why did the coach not do that? I can't believe they called that play,
If it were
dude.
me, I
Like,
would have. Yeah, well, there's a reason
yeah,
why
if
you're
it
not
was
on there. You know.
yeah, yeah, there's a reason why you're not coaching that team. It's because you don't have the expertise to develop the team, and it's very easy to say something in retrospect
Right.
without any threat or pressure on you, and you haven't put anything into it. So there's a whole lot of people out there, but I don't even. They're not. That's a that's the fans in the stands kind of idea. And JKD definitely has a lot of fans in the stands, and they all want to give their opinion. They're all going to say this is the way it should be, and they have their idea of what it can be or what they think Jeet Kune Do is. And it's like, well,
Right.
you haven't trained. You haven't trained with me. You haven't trained with Ian. You haven't trained with any of the first generation people or anyone in Jeet Kune Do. And they tend, I think, sometimes muddy it up, but it is worth considering to realize that I guess that's going to ultimately be your pool. How do you get through to the good, genuine people in that category that want to become a beginner student? And what are they looking for? What do they want? And then how do they get to intermediate? How do they get to advanced? I think there's something else. You're in your 30s now.
Hmm.
I'm in my 50s. We're both very early in those decades, just so everybody knows. But but the training methodology or the training commitment that an individual will have now, a 50-year-old, what I did when I was in my 20s, and what he did when he was in his 19 and then in 20s,
Yeah.
what someone in their their teens coming into their 20s, what they're willing to dedicate. How much are they willing to dedicate? It's difficult to find in an age of TikTok and whatever. You know, these kids, they're playing super fast video games. They often do not have that commitment. How do we reach out to them with Jeet Kune Do or whatever martial art you want to teach, or whatever program I guess you want to teach, or as a provider to a consumer base? How do you appeal to them? And I think that's one of the difficulties. I think I commented on this somewhere of like everybody kind of sees Jeet Kune Do as it's a finger jab to the eyes. Flick a little finger jab to the eyes and then pose. And it's like, well, that's what we think of Jeet Kune Do. And those fans in the stands, that's what they see Bruce do in a movie, and they don't understand the impracticality of training just that.
Can I
But
bitch
then
for a
there's,
second?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm just gonna be over here drinking my tea.
No, no. So like, I just like this just dawned on me, but it just amazes me that some people like think about Bruce Lee and all the stuff. Like the people think about Jeet Kune Do, what tricking is, but there's this cognitive dissonance that people still don't even understand what tricking is, or acrobatic martial arts, if anybody out there doesn't know. But I love when these JKD people, not to change the subject, but just in the world of relevancy, are sending me comments about my tricking when they can't even fucking throw a punch. And it's just like this weird interaction of like, I feel like people are confused. And it bothers me. And I think that the reason why I wanted to bring that up was because it actually does relate to what we're talking about, which is giving somebody something that is tangible to, you know, a wider market. And I think that you, among anybody else that I've trained with, has provided that, at least for me, because it was never really about, oh, this is Bruce Lee's signature special move, triple double finger jab, Captain Insano. It was, here is a movement. This is how the movement works. Let's look at the mechanics of this movement. Now that we understand the mechanics of this movement, let's look at what it means to express that in terms of Ian or Sifu Joel or all the other people that were with us in class.
Yeah, I think it goes on to, I mean, we've been hitting on this already, but that consumer market of being, you know, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, you've only got 2 or 3 seconds to do it. I'm a bitch myself. Most of the JKD people who are honestly really good at that freaking TikTok flashy shit, they're going to do 3 seconds of flashy stuff, which is going to catch the attention. And it's going to make all the fan base people who aren't actually training,
Yeah,
or
just
they're
wild
beginning
out
people
over it.
training in JKD, they're like, wow, that's freaking awesome. And that's it. But they could just be pretty athletic and be, and I guess that goes into my other thing of bitching about it, and where people don't quite understand once they get into it, is that's probably, at least in my world, those fucking people are beginners
Really
who
low
are,
level shit.
they're coming out, and I'm a fucking beginner. I've been training for whatever, and I've only reached a certain level. And then, you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm athletic. Granted, these guys are athletic, and they do something really simple, like I'm gonna do a hook kick. Great.
I wouldn't
I'm
even.
gonna do I'm gonna do a jab and do a hook kick, and I'm gonna smack some pads, and it's gonna make a loud sound, and it looks really cool to people who don't fucking have a clue, but clap and applaud, and they're a very large audience. And unfortunately, that consumer driven thing is being driven by the dregs of the JKD world. And I think that goes back into something else with the first generation guys. You're not getting the top tier people teaching from underneath most of those people. Unfortunately, a lot of times, especially since they've passed, most of the first generation guys are gone. Uh, the dregs are teaching. The dregs are out there, and they're passing off. Why? Because it's going to get someone buying your video. It's going to get someone, you know, getting a YouTube click. Why? Because
Because it's relevant. That's why. Because
because
it's
it's
relevant
relevant
to
in a
Bruce
three
Lee.
second fucking it's 3 second window, and there's no actual learning. And that's been a big deal for me for over a decade. Fan club versus training. If you're an actual practitioner and you're going to go and work, we can have a conversation. You can be different than me because you're an individual. That's great, but we can have a conversation. If you're just a fan club, then you're just going to cheer your team on and see what you want to see. And if I tell you why, because Ian, I know you've done this and I've done this, and I'm probably sure it's for tricking as well. Fucking people come in and they're trying to tell you about how you couldn't do that or how this would happen. And you're like, dude, do you have any fucking clue how biophysics work? How
So
many times have we had some drag
hold on.
instructor?
Hold
We're
on.
good. Is it drink your tea? Hold on, I'm not drinking my tea. Fuck that. How many times have we had some drag, quote unquote, JKD instructor come up and correct us on biomechanics and biophysics,
By
on
referencing
how,
the book.
by referencing a motherfucking book? Did you read where it said here?
Okay. So
Bitch,
look,
I seen you move.
yeah,
And you
you
move like shit.
yeah. Okay, so like, and the cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about is exactly what I'm talking about with you know, seeing people that these people fanboy over, because it's like, yo, somebody did a flashy punch pose thing or whatever. But then you've got these people that I know personally that are doing fucking standing double backs, and they don't know what the fuck is what, and probably want to have an opinion on that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like
Well,
they don't even have
well,
the
oh,
ability to look at what real athleticism even is. I'm not saying that you have to do flips to be athletic, but holy fuck, like what the
no, you know what? I'm gonna tie this into something you told me. It was during one of your tours that we were doing, and you're like, so if you don't know, Ian does tricking it, and he's really good, and he's around the best people and shows me videos of people, and he's like, dude, I don't even know, that's freaking unreal. And they're doing things that are otherworldly, right? It, I can understand it because I understand movement. I can't fucking do it, but I can be in awe of him. And it's pretty freaking amazing to see these videos, whether it's Ian or somebody that he's looking up to, and they're showing this stuff. But I remember you said, hey, I'm going on tour. We don't do any of that. None of that stuff is in the show.
Yeah.
In the show, and you were with people who are all, you were with a couple of really good people that could do some crazy next level shit, and everybody's doing basic stuff for two reasons. One, you don't want to get hurt in a show because you got to do what, 8 shows, or you're
Sometimes
doing a lot of
12.
shows in a week,
Yeah.
sometimes 12 shows a week. It's a lot of shows. But the other part you said is the audience won't get it. The audience is not educated enough to appreciate doing that triple, whereas a simple backflip is enough.
Yeah.
They can't appreciate the complexity and what goes into that higher level of tricking. And I think the same is true for martial arts. People cannot appreciate, for the most part, what they're doing. It looks like it. Do you remember Jimmy from Oklahoma?
Yeah. Jimmy. Wrecking Ball.
Yeah, Jimmy's a super great guy. Yep, Wrecking Ball. And we won't name where it was, but he got an opportunity to work with another second generation guy. And again, I'm not naming names, but the guy was, he's like a glorified personal trainer. Jimmy said he was really, really nice, and they did a bunch of cool stuff in class, and it was that kind of an environment. But we were doing energy training, and he said, Sifu, this stuff is magic. Like, they have no idea what it is that you're doing. He was talking about another full instructor in Jeet Kune Do who is very prominent, is way more well known than I am by like a lot. But one of my students trained with him and was like, they don't do it because Jimmy was in that intermediate level. He was looking at something else he'd been exposed to and could do on his own, something in the training that this person who was very athletic and very, very nice from what I understood, um, didn't understand some of the basic stuff that I was teaching in my classes to regular students.
I think that I'm really glad that you brought this up because this puts a call to action on people that are instructors that also realize this, that it's up to you and your responsibility ultimately to give your consumers something that they can leave the classroom with. And I think that for us, and as at least as far as the value that I've found, and I've told you this from the very beginning, of understanding how to read movement, understanding how to critique movement,
Mm-hmm.
understanding how to see that even if we can't do it, like you've told me, so many students of yours have, and I've had conversations with them about, they might not be able to perform whatever that action is or complete the skill to an optimal level, but they can at least see it, they can at least read it. And that's something that
Absolutely.
for us, like, they can take away for whatever it is that they get into, whether it be martial arts or whether it be basketball or soccer or whatever. And that call to action that I talk about is wanting to hold those JKD instructors accountable for, give your consumer something, or like just be open. If you're going to be like, yo, I'm going to host a class and we're just going to fucking pose like Bruce Lee for an hour, you know what? That's totally cool. But don't sell it like as
I
if you're
agree.
teaching them fucking magic.
And don't put it as the highest level. I think
Yeah,
that's a
God.
big thing is put out there.
Or being
They're
successful in
like,
a fight, for fuck's sake.
how many freaking, I've said this somewhere at point. Every fucking title out there on a YouTube video, extremely advanced Jeet Kune Do. No, it's not. It's
No.
fucking garbage. It's first level, beginner level class, and it's done poorly because there's no understanding of mechanics. And those same students that are maybe beginner or intermediate students with me, they have learned it because I say, hey, here's the beginning, and then we build it up. And you got to see where it goes. And I don't think, one, the consumers, if for a lot of these people who have followers, uh, they get in there and they just don't quite get it. Here's the thing. We went on to, I think so many people just don't pay attention to the obvious. And I'm going to give an
It's like
example of that.
blind to it.
So,
Yeah.
one of our first videos, avoid these JKD influencers, which are basically, they're not even dregs. They're just pretenders who watch some videos, are athletic enough, and capitalize on doing all of this stuff we are just talking about, of like, here's little snippet clips, and just pandering to the uneducated of non-students in the JKD world. But everything is extremely advanced. But I get freaking comments on that video
Oh Lord.
still, and every one of them is like, well, and I'll use this fucking name, Master Wong isn't he's Wing Chun, he's not Jeet Kune Do. And I'm like,
Dude, the
how
title
many
of the video is JKD. The fuck are you talking
yeah,
about?
it literally has an icon in the video clip we use. Look, if he said I'm Wing Chun, I'd be like, all right, whatever. We're not talking about Wing Chun today. We're talking about Jeet Kune Do.
Dude, even if he was like,
But
hey, I'm a Wing Chun person, but we're going to do something that's JKD, that even hits different versus JKD win a
didn't.
fight. Yeah, he didn't.
And his is so, we might even do a review. I haven't done a review in forever. We might do a review because I have seen him do some shit. One of my big things for him is he's really dangerous because he comes off, he's an athletic guy, and he has this, I think it's a character that he makes up. I mean, maybe that's his real personality. I don't know. I'm not going to speak to who he is as an individual because I don't know him. But anyway, one of the things we're talking about is, as a martial artist or as a martial arts instructor, you have to give genuine information, but also you have a responsibility, at least I feel you have a responsibility to your students. And maybe that's another thing in the JKD, it's the come learn Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, and I don't really know everything, but I'm going to sell you some more shit. Here's the one technique that will beat every attacker no matter what. It's like, well, what if we all learned it? Then how the fuck are we going to figure out who's going to win?
Well, not just that, but like, dude, you know what the really fucked up thing is about that? I'm so sorry, but I feel like this is a really big thing. Somebody might fucking try it, and they might be successful and really hurt somebody that they are now responsible for. And it probably is unlikely to actually be in a street fight. Like, you are
because
advocating...
they're not going to use it. They're not going to use it in that world.
Right.
But they're going to use it against their buddy
who's trying to show them some shit.
Beers,
exactly.
And they're fucking around, and suddenly they do it, but they haven't trained, and they do poke somebody's eye out with a finger jab.
And there is this huge responsibility lack of responsibility that I see when people are teaching shit like this with understanding that you are not advocating violence, but you are literally talking about things that do physical harm to either yourself or other people. And it's like, you need to be better. You really fucking need to be better. There's a very big difference between, hey, here's how to throw a punch and here's how to work a skill versus, yo, this is what we're going to exercise to use to fuck somebody up. And that is, for me, that's why my gears get so grinded, especially in the JKD world of, oh, you're just going to kick them in the balls and poke them in the eye and go for the throat or whatever. It's like, dude, have you ever seen somebody actually pull that off? It's really fucking dangerous. So why are you teaching people this shit?
And another thing is the whole self-defense thing. Like, you're going to go try this. You're going to go do this. One, you could hurt somebody, but two, you're giving people this false sense of security.
Right.
Like, hey, if you learn this, you can go do it. How many times have you seen a self-defense thing where it's a guy who's, my size, they're 6'1", 200 pounds, and they're like, okay, little miss, you're 5'1", 120 pounds. You're going to do this thing. No, you're not. That's just not going to work.
It's not.
It doesn't fucking work. Like, you try that on someone who is grown and pissed off, it just isn't going to work. Shit. If I try it on someone who is grown and pissed off, it's not going to work. And most of these people out there doing that little flashy, posy, 3-second, 5-second stuff, if I take that 5'1", 120-pound woman and have her try to I try to use it on her and she's pissed off, it's not going to work. And that's what I always look at. You're never trying to win a fight. You're
You don't win.
you're trying to be better. Yeah,
You
it's
don't
like being
win.
in a car wreck.
Yeah.
You're trying to diminish how bad it is. And you know what? I would say, look, I could get my ass kicked by anybody. In the right set of circumstances, I'm going to lose. Why? Well, I was kind of distracted. I'm a little bit tired, got fighting a little bit of a cold, thinking about something else, and you are full on focused on kicking the shit out of me, and you come up on me with emotional content and rip, snorting, and raring to go. Guess what? I'm probably gonna get my ass handed to me because you're gonna punch and you're just gonna keep tearing at my head, and I'm not gonna have the time to recover and get myself back into it. Now, look, yeah, I'm pretty good at that stuff, but there is a point where you're going to not win, and that's true for everybody. So when here's the other thing: the more advanced people get in fighting, the more skilled they are. And I've done this. Like I've talked to a ton of high level martial artists. I've talked to quite a few military people out there. They are the most respectful and reserved people. There's a certain level of like, dude, you're full of shit, that they'll call you out to your face, and they're
Yeah.
willing to back it up. But there's also an understanding that if you're an actual threat, if you come up on me and you're pissed off, I'm going to have to use something. It's not movies, gang. You're going to have to use some real force on somebody. And if you know what that entails, that's a terrible thing to have to do. Like, I do have to take someone's eye out. I've got to smash their testicles and I've got to hit them in the throat so that they freaking gurgle and die. Really? Do you like, that's what you want to be?
And
Like, there's a whole
just
there's
that,
a whole
but
thing to training emotional content,
yeah, do you
but you
have the
can't do it.
capacity?
You can't train emotional content very often because it'll fuck you up. If you look at law enforcement, they run into it. Military has their own version of it. If you look into law enforcement, they go out and they deal with negativity all day long. It's difficult for a lot of those guys and women to manage that and stay. I saw it in bouncing in the security world. You get
You
jaded.
get jaded,
You,
yeah.
you get up and you get negative because you're surrounded. And it's not because you're that person. It's because your job is to go and step into the middle of negativity all shift long. If there's something going on during your shift that's bad and crappy, it's your job to wade into the middle of it and sort it out. It's tough to carry that.
Here's the other thing. Um, Nothing but respect for people that choose that profession, but then you need to look at the people that grow up in rough neighborhoods, that live that cannot escape from that every day.
Hmm.
And the first thing that they are looking for is a way to get out by any means
Yeah.
necessary, or a way to, eliminate a threat or something of the sort. And you start realizing where these people are coming from, and then you're like, holy fuck, those people are really dangerous. Holy fuck, I don't want to mess with people like that.
Hey, I'm gonna bring in some of the things that I got back from my club days. It kind of goes in the same thing. So now look, there's a whole other section I'm not going to deal with of the sort of psychopath like nut jobs that are out there just freaking killing people. I'm not going to talk to that, but I'm talking about we'll say a criminal element, a non-legal personages, uh, non-legal business people,
Yeah.
and well, they're gangs or they're drug dealers or they're this or that. You want to know what? I ran across a couple of families in LA. They want no trouble at all because it's business.
Right.
And it kind of goes here. So the people who can do the most damage, the people who are in it and like legit, they want no trouble. They like, dude, if I can win a fight by not having a fight, that's great martial arts in my book. That's pretty awesome. I love training. It's fun. I don't care if you're a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old, 25-year-old, 55-year-old, doesn't make any difference. I like training. It's fun for me. I geek out on it. Using it, if I can use it with like words and I can not have to punch somebody in the face, that's a win for me. And everybody else I know who's at my level or around my level, they think the same way.
And the scary thing is, because of that upbringing, because of that background, when it is time for them to escalate, There's a very high chance they're
It's
going to be able to escalate a lot higher than what you think your capacity is.
and that's the sort of the thing. Like the people who are, in the nefarious or the non-legit businesses, they wanted no problems. They didn't want any reason for a cop to get called. They were very respectful. They greased a lot of hands just to be being nice.
Kosher.
And you know what? Here's the other thing. Uh, there is just some conversations you have through meeting with various people over years living in a metropolitan area. You run across somebody, at least in my world, I came across some people who were incarcerated. You know what? You got arrested. They actually were like, well, the cops doing their job. I got family, I got kids. What they were doing was illegal, but they weren't trying to hurt people,
Right.
you know? And the irony, if you're wondering, like, I knew people who they smuggled weed, which is fucking legal through most of the United States now.
Right.
All the United States?
No, not all of the
If
United
not all of
States.
it, but
He's in
not all of the United States, but I'm in Canada.
He's in
It's
Canada. He
legal
doesn't
pretty
know.
much. It's pretty much illegal everywhere in Canada too. Uh, I don't know if anywhere it's not legal in Canada. Anyway, like California is legal to buy weed. So, there's a whole stuff with that. They weren't looking for it. And just because you have the capacity doesn't mean that you're have the desire. And I think for a lot of the people who don't have the capacity, they have the desire to go out and showboat. They have the desire to go out and
Be tough.
prove,
Yeah,
look
prove
look at me,
themselves.
man.
Right.
Look at me. I'm gonna go out and I'm a freaking idiot. And I'm gonna go to the bar and I'm gonna go find another idiot and we're gonna go do what we think of, you know, because we got from some drag instructor who showed us a 5-second clip. That's what I saw as Jeet Kune Do, and I can be mine because I heard all the catchphrases, and then I'm gonna go punch someone in the face
But you
or
know
poke
what?
them in the eye.
I don't even have a problem with people wanting to prove themselves. But what I would say, and maybe we could wrap up with this, is
Hmm.
understand that there are healthy ways to do that. But when you step into those, you're likely stepping into a game. You're stepping into, sport combat. You're stepping into things. You want to be tough, go join a sport thing. Understand that it's different than I could survive any situation. But what was the biggest thing that you told me when you find out how really good you are? Do you remember? Whenever
Man,
to
I say a lot of
I
stuff.
know, but well, that's why I'm
Oh,
here.
well, it's what how
Yeah,
so I haven't thought about that in a long time. So when you truly discover how good you are as a martial artist, that's the moment you die.
right.
Literally, because you've gone all the way to death's door. You've given every possible part of your being, you've given your life in a very literal sense to that conflict. That's when you have reached your absolute epitome of best self. Anything short of that
You
is
live to fight another day.
you live to fight another day. And you know what? I've got 2 kids. I don't want to find out how good I really am.
Yeah.
I want to be home with my kids and see them. I think there was one other thing we were bounced. There's so many things we bounced around on. Uh, I know what it was. There are a lot of people, and maybe you've done this, and you can put a comment down. It's a pretty great thing. We have a lot of sports out there, whether you're playing basketball or football. It's a healthy way, soccer. It's a healthy way to get yourself out there and exert yourself as an athlete and get that aggression that a lot of us do, and a way for us to sort of stroke our own ego and prove ourselves in a way that is acceptable and it's not going to cause mass disruption and mayhem in your neighborhood.
Right.
Same is true for martial arts. I know a ton of people who have gotten into boxing and built themselves up and got into an amateur fight where there's a referee and a ring and gloves and headgear and a mouth guard and rules and win a couple of rounds with each other and really felt great about who they were afterwards. That was a big challenge for them. Some people will go hiking, they'll climb a mountain or something.
Right.
Someone will go parachuting. People do kickboxing. They'll do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. A lot of people, one of the things that people like about that is it's a place for camaraderie. You get to get rid of your aggression so you can be calmer when you go home. And you can go and try yourself in class, but then you can join a tournament and there's rules and you can challenge yourself there. So win, lose, or draw, you still challenged yourself and you've lived another day. That's the whole benefit of sport or doing controlled sparring inside of your world.
Right.
And when you see, we'll end with this one, that that demonization of another athlete, sometimes seen in the sport martial arts like MMA, where I'm on one side and I'm talking shit about Ian because he's the guy I got to fight. It's tough to get yourself up to a level, just like any sport, football team. Hey, we're going to go against the other team. It's difficult. I've talked to some pro athletes where, yes, they have to find that balance of, hey, I got to play my hardest and put full force into that. But at the same time, this is my job. And I might be on the same team as that person next year. And we don't want to see anybody get hurt because it's
Right.
our business, you know?
And a
That's
lot
it.
of
That's
times,
a career ending.
a lot of times that all that negativity that they have towards each other is marketing. Like it even happened
Yeah.
with adrenaline when
Because
I was doing
it,
you know, I DJ'd for the tricking battles and stuff. Those guys
mhm,
are like best friends, but on TV, they got to act like they freaking hate each other. And there you
yeah.
go.
And that's the truth. Well, it goes back into uh, the old wrestling, the old fake wrestling,
Yeah, yeah,
you
WWF or
know,
WWE, but
it, well, it's WWE now, but it's
yeah.
WWF back then. And you've got the Junkyard Dog and all these guys were, and Hulk Hogan, and you know,
Yeah,
Andre the Giant.
they have these
Andre the
things.
Giant was a pro wrestler, and he's considered to be one of the nicest people ever to everybody who's ever talked to him, whether they were doing movies or wrestling or just ran across him on the street. He's considered to be one of, and then I'm coming up. The guys he was fighting, or Hulk Hogan, or whoever the bad guy was, shit. I think The Rock has come back, and he's come back as the bad guy.
Yeah, so
This is The Rock.
I didn't know this, but whenever they do their segments of like when they take the mic and like they start doing all their shit talking, that's actually called a
Mm-hmm.
promo.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so that's like, you know, The Rock is going to fight Stone Cold in the cage, Rage in the cage, Hell in the Cell, and whatever, like all that, you know, 5 minute segment shit. Like that is all a promo. That is
It's
all a
all,
promo.
please watch our fight. Well, here's the other
Yeah.
thing. So these two guys wrestling, it's really athletic. Go back and watch these guys, or watch. There's women in it now too. It's really fantastic. Watch them. They're stunt fighting. They're doing stage fighting. The same
100%.
as in a movie. The villain in a movie and the good guy in the movie have to work together a whole lot and be really tight for a bit. I
Hmm.
mean, if you go into Star Wars and you take Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, maybe that's not the best one, but whatever, you're gonna pick someone in there. They have to fight. Pick any whatever two sides, opposing sides, whether it's a sporting team or uh, you know an MMA fight or a movie fight or a WWE fight. They're not really fighting as much as you think they are. And eh, yeah, there's kind of in there. I've been in the room. Here's the thing. Pecking order is really figured out pretty quickly in a real martial arts school.
Yeah.
If you go into a dojo, a kun, whatever you want to call it, you go in there, that shit gets figured out very, very quickly
Very
because the
fast.
top dogs are top dogs and they'll put you in your place like right away. And you can't really do, and then you know what? It's fine. Everybody's good. Everybody's like, okay, we're gonna go. You're the top dog. You're the top person. Whatever. Great. I'm gonna follow you. Let's go. You got because, and sometimes it's because you just showed me something really, really good, and I'm sure it's the same way in tricking, where if someone comes out and just bombs a mad stunt or whatever, you're just like, holy shit,
Yeah, how
dude!
did you do
Like,
that? Yeah, that's me
what?
anyway. I'm like,
Okay, okay. So we're gonna see what the wow. How can I get close to that? I guess that's
that
how can I get close to that?
that even
And what do you
happens.
want to get close to?
And I was gonna say that even happens with music production. You know, I've been very
Hmm.
fortunate to, you know, get and meet with some really large scale producers and stuff, and whenever they come out with something new, like I do the same thing. I'll send them a message and I'm like, yo, how the hell did you do that? Or like, were you thinking? Or like, can you show me or something? Because that's the environment that helps the whole thing of cultivation. And that's what
which
it should
is
be about.
which is what we are all about. And I think that's the we are trying to cultivate ourselves and cultivate those around us through martial arts or music or tricking or whatever. And it's to be a better person. And we started this episode off with the idea of consumerism, and you can have an idea and it sometimes leads you someplace differently. And I think that was true for a lot of the first generation people, that they started in one direction and then it went someplace different. And some of that just is sort of snowballed and run wild in ways that I don't think Bruce or even the first generation people would approve of. But what are you going to do when they're not under your control? You know, they don't have that in there.
Well, not just
There's only
that,
so
but
much I
like,
can do.
imagine if Bruce Lee like was not an actor, you know, he'd have
Yeah,
to be figuring this shit out.
yeah.
If he was
I
still
mean,
alive and had to run a school, like it would be the same thing.
and what if? Well, here's the other one. What would? Oh, maybe this is for our next one. What would Jeet Kune Do be today if we never saw Bruce Lee do martial arts in a movie?
Yeah,
That's an interesting thing,
yeah, should
because
definitely.
I think that's been, if he wasn't an actor. But then again, if he wasn't an actor, maybe he would have never pushed things quite so much. I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about that next time, maybe, or in a future episode.
Hey, gang, thanks for listening this far. If you haven't liked this video, please do so. If you have ideas for future content or have questions about this particular content, drop it down in the comments. If you haven't gone over to Ian's page, Alchemy Neuro, please do so. You know, he's got some cool stuff on there. He does a lot of things on there with music development and music production. And that's about as much as I know about it. So you'll have to go to his channel to find out more. But give him a listen, and then, say, hey, I was on the evolution page and I jumped over here, just to do it. He'll chat you up on one of his live streams or something like that too.
Yeah,
So cool
well,
stuff.
Sifu Joe has been on the channel too, and I actually have other interviews with other artists that I was talking about on that stuff. If you want to kind of learn more about that, but since we're kind of throwing out promos here, we actually have a course available that we'll leave in the description below. But this is something that if you're learning or wanting to get into JKD, in case if this is the first thing that you've ever seen by chance, it is not a matter of teaching you to throw fireballs and to be successful in every fight, but it's a great introduction to learn about movement and to start having a better sense about the things that we talk about. And I advocate it because, well, one, Sifu Joel and I put a lot of work into it. We did everything ourselves. But two, there's a preservation of our history and also a preservation of seeking that truth of movement that I think we go deeper into in other episodes.
I would further that and say, if you're this far into this episode and you don't have it, go get it right now, because you've been listening this much through the two of us. You're ready to take that next step, if you have not taken it, to go from a fan base into being an actual student. And that's a great way to get you going.
If you're willing to hear us out while we bitch, you're gonna love us as teachers. It's Sifu Joel teaching, but I will say you're gonna love
Well,
the
we're
instruction.
we're there together. We're there
You know
together.
what I mean?
And yeah, if you're gonna listen, and honestly, when you start training with someone like me or Ian, you're going to get that at some point. You're going to hear it in class, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're sharing, is just that aspect. This is just those conversations that sometimes are important as martial artists. I've had them with Ian and with many other people, whether they were students or my instructors, and I always found them valuable. So that's what we're trying to do here. All right, gang, we're going to hop off until next time. So thanks.
Bye, everyone.